My pregnant sister wanted to use my house for a dangerous free birth. I said no and all hell broke loose. But a friend's emergency made her reconsider everything. I, 32 am, never thought I'd be in this situation, but here I am. My sister Mia, 28F, is pregnant with her first child, and she's made a really unusual request that's left me feeling conflicted and uncomfortable. Mia and I grew up in a pretty traditional, middle-class family in the suburbs. Our parents, while loving, were always a bit overprotective and had high expectations for us. I followed the conventional path: good grades, college, steady job. Mia, on the other hand, always had a rebellious streak. From a young age, Mia questioned everything. She was the kid who asked why we celebrated holidays the way we did, why we ate certain foods, why we followed certain traditions. As she got older, this questioning evolved into a full-blown rejection of many societal norms. She became vegan at 16, much to our meat and potatoes family's confusion. She opted out of college to travel and find herself instead. Our parents were concerned, but I admired her free spirit, even if I didn't always understand her choices. Mia met her boyfriend Craig, 30M, about 3 years ago at a meditation retreat. Craig's background is similar to ours, but he too had rejected the conventional path. He works as a freelance graphic designer and is heavily into alternative medicine and Eastern philosophy. When Mia brought him home to meet the family, our parents were polite but clearly skeptical. I remember Dad pulling me aside and asking if I thought this was just a phase for Mia. Despite our parents' reservations, Mia and Craig seemed happy together. They moved in together after dating for just 6 months, renting a tiny studio apartment in the artsy part of town. Mia started working at a local organic cafe and selling handmade jewelry on the side. It wasn't the life our parents had envisioned for her, but she seemed content. When Mia announced her pregnancy 6 months ago, it was a bit of a shock to everyone. Mia had always said she wasn't sure if she wanted kids, and Craig had never mentioned wanting to be a father. But they both seemed excited about this new adventure. That's when Mia first mentioned wanting a natural birth experience without any medical intervention. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured she'd eventually come around to the idea of at least having a midwife present. Our mom tried to share stories of her own birth experiences. Both Mia and I were born in hospitals, but Mia wasn't interested. She started attending these pregnancy circles with other expectant mothers who shared her views on natural childbirth. As her due date approaches, she's about 7 months along now, I'm realizing just how serious she is about this whole unassisted birth thing. She's been reading books about free birthing and watching YouTube videos of women giving birth at home without any medical assistance. When our parents or I express concern, she dismisses us as being brainwashed by the medical establishment. Last week, Mia and Craig came over for dinner. I try to have them over regularly, partly to keep an eye on how Mia's doing with the pregnancy, and partly because I know they're on a tight budget and probably appreciate a good meal. I made a vegan lasagna, still getting the hang of cooking without cheese, but I'm trying, and we had a nice evening catching up. After we finished eating, Mia dropped a bombshell on me. She asked if they could use my house for the birth. I was completely taken aback and didn't know how to respond at first. Mia explained that their tiny studio apartment wasn't suitable for a home birth. They don't have a bathtub, and there's barely enough room to walk around, let alone set up a birthing pool. Plus, they're worried about noise complaints from neighbors if they do it there. Apparently, they've already had issues with their downstairs neighbor complaining about Craig's late-night guitar playing. I have a modest 3-bedroom house with 2 bathrooms, one of which has a large soaking tub. I bought the place a couple of years ago when I got a promotion at work. It's nothing fancy, but it's comfortable and in a quiet neighborhood. Mia said it would be perfect for a water birth, which is apparently what she's envisioning. When I hesitated, Mia got emotional. She started talking about how important it is for her to have a peaceful, intimate birth experience. She said I should be honored to be part of such a special moment in her life. She even brought up how I'd always been supportive of her choices in the past, unlike our parents. Craig chimed in, saying they'd been struggling to find a suitable location and that I was their last hope. I tried to gently suggest that maybe they should consider a hospital birth, or at least consult with a midwife. But Mia shut that down immediately. She's adamant about having an unassisted birth, claiming that hospitals are too clinical and interventionist. She started rattling off statistics about C-section rates and medical interventions that she'd read online. Here's where I'm really torn. I love my sister, and I want to support her. We've always been close, despite our different life paths. When our parents struggled to accept some of Mia's choices, I was often the mediator, the one who encouraged them to keep an open mind. But the idea of an unassisted home birth in my house terrifies me. Neither Mia nor Craig have any medical training. What if something goes wrong? I'm not comfortable with the potential risks or liability. I also feel weird about the logistics. Mia said I don't have to be there for the actual birth if I'm uncomfortable, but the thought of leaving them alone in my house for who knows how long doesn't sit well with me either. And what about the mess? Birth is messy, right? I'm not squeamish, but the idea of my bathtub being used for this purpose makes me a bit uneasy. When I voiced some of these concerns, Mia accused me of not supporting her choices. She said I was being selfish and prioritizing my comfort over her needs as an expectant mother. She brought up times in the past when I'd supported her unconventional decisions, like when I helped her move into her first apartment against our parents' wishes. Craig gave me a disappointed look and said he thought I'd be more understanding. To make matters worse, our mom called me the next day. Apparently, Mia had told her about my hesitation, and now mom is guilt-tripping me too. She keeps saying how wonderful it would be to have the baby born in a family home and that I should be more supportive of my sister. I think mom is just desperate to be involved in some way, since Mia has been shutting her out of most of the pregnancy process. I feel like I'm being pressured from all sides, but my gut is telling me this is a bad idea. I'm worried about safety, liability, and honestly, the whole situation just makes me incredibly uncomfortable. Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting, if I'm letting my more conventional mindset cloud my judgment. But another part of me feels like this is a step too far, that supporting Mia's choices is one thing, but potentially putting her and her baby at risk is another. I've tried reaching out to some of Mia's friends to see if they can talk sense into her, but most of them seem to share her views on natural childbirth. I even considered calling Craig's parents, but I've only met them a couple of times and I'm not sure how they'd react. So, Reddit, aita for not wanting my sister to give birth in my house? Am I being unsupportive, or are my concerns valid? I'm really struggling with this decision and could use some outside perspective. How do I support my sister without compromising my own boundaries and concerns for her safety? Update 1. Thank you all for your responses to my original post. I've been overwhelmed by the support and advice I've received. A lot has happened since I last posted, and I wanted to give you all an update. After reading through the comments, I realized I needed to have a serious conversation with Mia. I invited her over, without Craig this time, to talk things through. I thought maybe if we could speak one-on-one, like we used to when we were kids, we might be able to find some common ground. It didn't go well. I made Mia's favorite tea, a special blend she introduced me to a few years ago, and we sat down in my living room. I tried to calmly explain my concerns about safety and liability. I even showed her some of the resources you all shared about the risks of unassisted home births. I thought maybe if she saw the information coming from neutral sources, not just from me or our parents, she might be more receptive. Mia listened at first, sipping her tea and nodding along. But as I continued, I could see her body language changing. She set down her mug and crossed her arms. When I finished speaking, she was quiet for a moment, and I thought maybe I'd gotten through to her. But then she got defensive. She accused me of not trusting her judgment and trying to control her birth experience. "You sound just like mom and dad," she said, her voice rising. "I thought you were different, I thought you understood me." She went on to say that I was betraying her by siding with the medical establishment and that I clearly didn't respect her as a woman or a mother. Things escalated when I suggested that if she was set on a home birth, she should at least consider having a certified midwife present. I thought this was a reasonable compromise, but Mia exploded. She stood up, knocking over her mug in the process. Tea spilled across my coffee table, soaking into the stack of pamphlets I'd printed out about safe home birthing practices. "I can't believe this," she shouted, tears in her eyes. "My own brother, betraying me like this. You're just like our parents, trying to control my life, my choices." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I was left standing there, stunned, surrounded by the mess of spilled tea and scattered papers. The next day, I got a series of angry text messages from Craig. He called me a selfish jerk and said I was causing Mia unnecessary stress during her pregnancy. He even threatened to cut me out of the baby's life if I didn't get on board with their plan. Reading those messages, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. How had things gotten to this point? I was feeling pretty awful about the whole situation, replaying the argument with Mia over and over in my head. But then something unexpected happened. My neighbor, Peggy, 35F, who's a labor and delivery nurse, came over. She said she'd overheard Mia yelling as she left my house and wanted to check if everything was okay. I ended up spilling the whole story to Peggy over a cup of coffee. It felt good to talk to someone who wasn't directly involved in the family drama. Peggy listened patiently, then shared her professional perspective. She was horrified when she heard about Mia's plans. She shared some really sobering statistics about the risks of unassisted home births, especially for first-time mothers. But the real bombshell came when Peggy pointed out something I hadn't even considered. In our state, it's actually illegal to assist in a home birth without proper certification. She explained that if something went wrong and it came out that I had knowingly allowed an unassisted birth in my home, I could potentially face legal consequences. This information hit me hard. I'd been focused on the emotional and family dynamics of the situation, but the legal aspect added a whole new layer of complexity. I realized that by saying no to Mia, I wasn't just being unsupportive, I was potentially protecting myself legally. Armed with this new information, I decided to stand my ground. I spent hours drafting an email to Mia, trying to strike the right balance between firmness and compassion. I explained that while I love her and want to support her, I simply cannot allow an unassisted birth to take place in my home. I outlined the legal risks, not just for me but potentially for her and Craig as well. I offered to help her research safer alternatives, including birth centers that offer a more home-like environment. Hitting send on that email was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I knew it would hurt Mia, but I also knew it was the right thing to do. For days after, I anxiously checked my phone, waiting for a response. But Mia remained silent. However, our mom called again. This time, instead of guilt-tripping me, she actually thanked me for standing firm. Apparently, Peggy had reached out to her, with my permission, to share her professional concerns, and it finally got through to our mom how risky this plan is. Mom admitted that she'd been so desperate to be involved in Mia's pregnancy that she'd been willing to overlook the dangers. Now, she's fully on my side and is trying to talk sense into Mia. The family dynamics have shifted dramatically. Craig's parents have also gotten involved, and from what I hear, they're not happy about the unassisted birth plan either. They've offered to help pay for a midwife or a birth center, but Mia and Craig are reportedly not speaking to them either. As of now, I'm standing firm on my decision. I won't be allowing the birth to take place in my home. I'm worried about the strain this is putting on my relationship with Mia, but I know I'm doing the right thing. There's a part of me that hopes this rift will heal with time, especially once the baby arrives. But another part of me worries that this could be a turning point in our relationship, that things might never be the same between us. I'll update again if there are any major developments. Thank you all again for your support and advice through this challenging time. Update 2. It's been a whirlwind couple of weeks since my last update, and I have some surprising news to share. First, the not so good. Mia was furious about my email and the fact that I'd discussed the situation with Peggy. She left me a voicemail full of angry accusations, that I'd betrayed her trust, that I was trying to turn the family against her, that I clearly didn't respect her as a woman or a mother-to-be. For a while, she and Craig were refusing to speak to me, Mom, or Craig's parents. The silence was hard to bear. Mia and I have always been close, despite our differences. Not being able to check in on her, to see how she was doing with the pregnancy, it was eating me up inside. I tried to respect her wishes for space, but I couldn't help worrying. But then, something unexpected happened. Mia's best friend since childhood, Lena, 29F, went into labor 3 weeks early. Lena had been planning a hospital birth, but things progressed so quickly that she ended up giving birth at home with just her husband present. I heard about it from Mom, who got a call from Lena's mother. While Lena and the baby survived, she had some serious complications that required her to be rushed to the hospital immediately after the birth. She lost a lot of blood and had to have emergency surgery. It was a scary situation, and apparently, it really shook Mia up. For days after Lena's experience, I debated whether I should reach out to Mia. I wanted to be there for her, but I was afraid of pushing her further away. In the end, I decided to send her a simple text. I heard about Lena. I hope she's okay. I'm here if you need to talk. To my surprise, Mia called me the next day. She was in tears, asking if we could talk in person. When she came over, she looked exhausted. She admitted that she'd been so focused on having her perfect birth experience that she'd lost sight of what was truly important, the safety of herself and her baby. Seeing what Lena went through, she said, wiping her eyes, it made me realize how quickly things can go wrong. And if that had been me, giving birth here or in our apartment, with no medical help. She trailed off, and I could see the fear in her eyes. Mia apologized for putting me in such an uncomfortable position and for lashing out when I expressed my concerns. We talked for hours, really talked, like we used to when we were younger. She opened up about her fears, fear of losing control in a hospital setting, fear of being judged for her choices, fear of turning into our mother, who she sees as having lost her identity to motherhood. The biggest surprise came when Mia asked if I would go with her to tour a local birth center. She's still not keen on a hospital birth, but she's open to a compromise that offers a more home-like environment with medical professionals on hand. I agreed immediately, relieved that she was considering safer options. Craig is taking a bit longer to come around. He wasn't with Mia when she came to talk to me, and from what Mia said, he's still defensive about their original plan. But he's agreed to tour the birth center with Mia. I think he's relieved that they've found a middle ground that Mia is comfortable with. Mom is overjoyed that Mia is reconsidering her plans. She's been incredibly supportive, offering to help in any way she can. She's even started researching natural pain management techniques to suggest to Mia, trying to show that she respects Mia's desire for a more natural experience. Craig's parents have also expressed their relief and have offered to contribute financially to the birth center costs. As for me, I'm just glad that this situation is moving in a more positive direction. My relationship with Mia is on the mend, and I feel a huge sense of relief knowing that she'll be in safe hands when the time comes. I'm going to tour the birth center with Mia next week. I'm a bit nervous, to be honest. I've never been to a place like this before, and I'm not sure what to expect. But I'm also excited to support Mia in this new direction. I've been doing some research of my own about birth centers, trying to understand their approach and philosophy better. There's still a long way to go. Mia and Craig have a lot to process, and I know there will be more conversations and probably some disagreements ahead. But for now, I'm just grateful that we're talking again, that Mia is considering safer options, and that our family seems to be coming together rather than being torn apart by this. I'll post another update after the birth center tour to let you all know how it goes and what Mia decides. Thank you all again for your support and advice throughout this challenging situation. Update 3. Hello everyone, I'm back with what will likely be my final update on this situation. A lot has happened since I last posted, including the arrival of my new niece. First, the birth center tour went really well. Mia was impressed by the homey atmosphere and the staff's supportive approach to natural birth. She particularly liked that they had birthing tubs available, which aligned with her desire for a water birth. The midwives there were patient and understanding, answering all of Mia's questions without judgment. I could see Mia relaxing as we went through the tour, and by the end, she seemed much more at ease with the idea. Craig came along too, and while he was quieter, I could tell he was paying close attention to everything. He asked some good questions about their emergency procedures and transfer protocols if something were to go wrong. I think seeing the professionalism of the staff and the well-equipped facilities helped him feel more comfortable with the idea. After the tour, Mia officially decided to give birth at the center. There was a moment, as we were leaving, when Mia turned to me and said, "Thank you for pushing me to consider this. I think this is the right choice." It meant a lot to hear that from her. The weeks leading up to the birth were much calmer than I expected. Mia and I grew closer as I supported her through this change of plans. She even asked me to be present at the birth, which I was honored to accept, though I was also a bit nervous about it. Now, for the big news. 2 weeks ago, Mia went into labor. It was a long process, about 18 hours in total. I won't go into all the details, but I will say that I have a whole new level of respect for what women go through during childbirth. Seeing my sister in pain was hard, but the midwives were amazing at supporting her and helping her through it. There were some tense moments. At one point, the baby's heart rate dropped, and the midwives were concerned. They were prepared to transfer Mia to the hospital if needed, but, thankfully, things stabilized. Seeing how quickly the staff responded and how prepared they were for complications really drove home how important it was to have medical professionals present. In the end, Mia gave birth to a healthy baby girl, Lily, weighing 7 pounds 3 ounces. The look of pure joy and love on Mia and Craig's faces when they first held Lily is something I'll never forget. Despite her earlier insistence on an unassisted birth, Mia later told me that she felt empowered and supported throughout the whole process at the birth center. After the birth, Mia pulled me aside and thanked me. She admitted that if she had gone through with the unassisted home birth, things could have gone very differently when the baby's heart rate dropped. She said she was grateful that I had stood my ground and helped her see reason. Craig also apologized to me for his behavior. He said the reality of becoming a father had put things into perspective for him, and he now understands why we were all so concerned. We're not best friends or anything, but I think this experience has helped us understand each other better. Mia and Lily are both doing well and are back home now. Our whole family is over the moon, and even Craig's parents have buried the hatchet. Mom is in full grandmother mode, barely leaving Mia's side and constantly doting on Lily. It's nice to see everyone getting along after all the tension of the past few months. As for me, I'm enjoying being an uncle. Holding Lily for the first time was an incredible feeling, and I'm so glad that everything worked out safely in the end. Mia and I have had some good talks since Lily's birth, and I feel like our relationship is stronger than ever. Thank you all again for your advice and support throughout this journey. It's been a wild ride, but I'm grateful for the positive outcome and the stronger relationships that have come out of it.